What are your thoughts about food insecurity? I'm reading a government report here. It's from the NCHS, and it is talking about a national health interview survey that found that 5.9% of adult ages over 18 experienced food insecurity in the last 30 days. Now, this is a 2021 report, and that family food insecurity is higher among women than men. This is a government study. Biden's talking about it a lot right now. Let's talk about the facts about food insecurity and how it impacts your family. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. So, the reason I pause there for a little bit is because food insecurity is a myth. The government is pushing that food insecurity is a thing that's happening in America today based on a report that was done with a survey. Now, you may not know I have a background in research methods. I'm an analyst. I look into the details because I want to provide you quality and useful information. I do know that food insecurity is, by their definition, is not being able to find quality food. So, not quantity. America is obese. We have a lot of health issues associated with being overweight. We have enough food calories available, but the challenge is actually food quality. Now, the media is going to talk about food insecurity and how there's 33.8 million people in America who are food insecure, and you have to ask about the definition. So it's only fair that I give you the definition of food security from the Prosperity Homestead perspective. So when I speak with you about food security and I'm saying, hey, look, if you want to be more secure with your food, you want to have better access to quality food, I am talking about premium product. Listen carefully because a lot of folks don't agree with this. If you were to go to the grocery store and buy the very best, the highest quality steak, grass fed, nice marbling, beautiful flavor and texture, no coloring added, just a beautiful steak. That would be a very expensive proposition because food manufacturing today takes low quality product, colorizes it, pumps it full of water, and makes it look like high quality when it is not. So let's assume you have access to the highest quality meat available. And what I've seen in New York, that could be as much as $45 per pound. Now, I hear what you're saying, Justin. We're not buying $45 pound steak. But what if you could get $45 a pound steak at a reasonable price because you're buying it through a regional or local food system? Now, there's a balance here. When we talk about price and quality, those are two different things. What I'm saying is let's eat food, natural food, seasonal food. Let's eat food that is raised in ethical ways. I've spoken about the halal raising of meats and the halal raising and handling during the slaughtering process. I am not Muslim. However, that particular methodology has a set of rules very similar to the kosher set of rules that allows for that animal to have the very best life possible. They're not raised in stockyards, they're not kicked and pushed around, they're not pushed into a factory style manufacturing system. In fact, the animals are small batched, they're raised in natural environments, they're fed quality food. There is even a provision that an animal that has a human has had sex with is now haram, which means not permissible. So there's even an ethical perspective that that has to do with things beyond what we would normally think about when it comes to our animals. I'm not claiming that factory farmed animals are sexually abused, but I'm just saying that it's not a factory manufacturing food, but it is a farmer raising quality food. So less stress hormones, higher quality feed, more access to sunlight to build up that vitamin D. And so when we're looking at quality, food security in our context here, in the permaculture context, and the regenerative agriculture context, is food that's full of nutrients, full of enzymatic, healthy enzymes, full of vitamins and minerals naturally and not manufactured as such. And so now the government's saying we have this food insecurity, and they are right in some ways because this is impacting health outcomes. Low quality, cheap food creates increased risks of high cholesterol, hypertension, chronic health conditions, and other limitations that have to do with your body's not getting the right amount of nutrients. It's not getting the right kinds of fats. It's getting hormones and things that were injected into that animal that are detrimental to a human. So there are studies that show that GMO corn fed to cows actually passes through their digestive system and gets into the meats as well. So their manures are now going into soil with genetically modified organism, and the animal itself is being impacted because the corn itself is not a full health. Actually, feeding corn to cows and stuff is not the best thing to be doing anyway. But the bottom line, though, is that there's a difference between the cow eating grass and the cow eating corn. There's even a difference between the cow eating fodder. So chopping up corn stalks and fermenting them is actually pretty healthy for cows. But my point being is if you go into the store and buy the most healthy, most high quality meat, it's not accessible to most people. And so is it right to claim that the food to be purchased through a grocery is inaccessible when you can actually go to the local farmer's market and you can go to a local farm or you can raise the animal yourself and have just as high quality, not volume, but quality, and enjoy that food at a reasonable volume. Now, this is important because, again, there's no shortage of food in America. There's food everywhere. In fact, there are some claims that Americans eat as many as 10,000 calories a day. We're getting that through refined sugars, refined uh, flours, grains, and other things. We're getting it through seed oils. We're getting it through a lot of different ways that are not healthy for our bodies. So the accessibility of food is not limited by any means, not even financially, because again, there are many things that were not counted in this survey. So this particular survey that President Biden is talking about right now that claims there's food insecurity is talking about surveys done on grocery stores, large grocery store chains, large food manufacturing and food producing organizations. It's admitting food vendors, uh, uh, such as like this food stall on the street or a fruit stall on the street. In fact, in San Francisco, folks are trying to sell fresh vegetables and fresh fruit from carts, and the inspectors are knocking these things over. Um, Here's the bottom line. When we talk about food security, what I'm talking about is being able to go out in your yard and have fresh seasonal fruits and vegetables, to go to a local farmer's market, to go to a local co-op or a community sponsored agriculture and getting fresh seasonal vegetables. Now, if you can't get oranges in your local area, that does not make you food insecure. That puts you in a climate where oranges do not grow. Does that mean you cannot have oranges? Well, yes, you can still go to the grocery store and buy oranges if you want. There's usually oranges in there, but my uh, perspective is it may not be as best in your best interest to do so, as many of these oranges are coated in chemicals. They're often raised quickly and are pretty much just sugar and water. And there could be a supply of vitamin C in your own region that is higher mineral content, higher nutritional value, and readily available. So, for example, um, the the cactus, there's a fruit on a cactus that is high in vitamin C and minerals, and it has just as much value as an orange. These little small oranges, but it's only available certain times of the year. So it doesn't make you food insecure if you can't access things that are out of season, if you have the knowledge to make yourself food secure and raise things in your local area. And so we have to look at the variety of food that we're making available to ourselves. We want to look at the quality of food because you can eat less calorie with higher nutritional value and meet your caloric needs for the day. We get a lot of questions about how many acres do I need to grow all my own food. It's 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 nice to want to grow all your own food, but are you going to have the time? Do you have the skills? Are you going to be able to raise the variety of fruits and vegetables? Are you going to be raising plants true to seed and have the time to save the seed in order to propagate the plants? There's a lot of things that folks just don't understand when we're talking about homesteading. And so that's why we advocate food security in the concept of local and regional food. So knowing your farmer and having better decisions about where you get your food from. Now, of course, the media, the whole fourth estate, is echoing what President Biden is saying and talking about how we need to increase the amount of money that goes into food programs such as food stamps and caloric assistance. So you may not know that a lot of the food stamp money goes directly to food manufacturers who then provide more packaged and processed foods. And of course, the government is disconnecting the connection between processed foods with poor health outcomes. So this is likely lobbyist pressure pushing to fund food stamps and other assistance programs because that money goes directly into fast food, processed food, and what I call the food industrial complex. Now, food stamps is a form of market subsidy, not individual help. So when families, before food stamps, what would a family do? Well, before there were food stamps, the family would just work, and hard work cures hunger, but they would also grow their own garden. They would sell their surplus to their neighbors and raise money. They would barter and trade. They would co op farming. So a lot of community farms are actually sponsored by, or used to be sponsored by, or owned in part by the community it serves. And we see that in the CSA model. But again, before food stamps, families would grow a garden and they would improve their situation without government help. Many times, with government help, it becomes a subsidy in the sense that we have a large percentage of the US population that depends on the government for their needs. Now, when that same government comes to them or political figures come to them, they can say, well, I'm going to try to increase your benefits. The population expects us to feed them. Are you livestock? Or are you human? Can you figure out how to feed yourself? But again, these programs are about control. And so the subsidies create voting pools and it creates a position of influence. And so this is another thing, too. The influence is created by offering or threatening to remove the programs. Food security is not having to worry about someone else feeding you. So, food security from our perspective is you've got a small piece of land, you've got certain things that grow on it, or you have income from that land so that you can buy high quality, high value foods from your local region. Now, the reason the local region is so important is because it lowers the food miles. You get fresher food, higher quality food, more seasonal food. Now, again, there's always the political person who threatens that their opponent will take away these benefits. But are they really benefits? Does food stamps actually help people get out of poverty and help people get the quality food that they need? Does it help them feed their children? And the studies have shown that it doesn't. It helps them feed them food or just calories in general, but again, that's quantity over quality. Studies have shown you can live longer and you can live a healthier life eating fewer calories with a higher nutritional density. In fact, it's the nutritional density that matters more than the calories you take in or any other aspect of the food. So if you're using rancid seed oils or olive oil that's not actually even olive oil and you're eating highly processed food and you're not getting fiber and protein and the other elements that you need or complex carbohydrates, you're instead getting simple carbohydrates, you're going to have negative food outcomes. Now, there is a preference difference between supporting local farms versus supporting, the big industrial complex. The big industrial complex can create large volumes of food that will make you feel full or that'll make you feel happy and really get you emotionally connected. It is sometimes boring to eat raw foods and vegetables. I was a vegan for 4 years, raw food vegan, only ate raw foods, giant salads, giant volumes of food in order to maintain my calorie need. And it got boring after a while. Now it was boring because of my understanding of wasn't cooking the food, so there wasn't dishes and stuff I could do. So I would literally eat a bag of carrots for a meal. But long story short, if you learn how to cook, we start creating culture, fermenting, uh, meal prep. There's different options to make that food interesting a lot of folks just don't have that skill. So the last part of food security for what we talk about here is to make sure you know about fermentation, that you know about the different ethnic foods, different cultural foods, and that we ultimately have a chance to take our seasonal vegetables, to take our seasonal meats, to take those things and produce something that's community based, that's worth sharing, that's the experience and the interchange of culture, food, and knowledge and taste, so that we have something of value. Now, you could grow all your own fruits and vegetables and meats. I think that is a very good thing to do. But again, you don't have to have property to do this. You could volunteer for a local farm. You could work in a community garden. You can do a lot of things, but because you don't have to grow everything to eat it. But do not be distracted by the food insecurity claims that are based on a survey that simply asks some questions about somebody's last 30 days experience and doesn't really look into quantity, quality, and availability on a broad scale. This is political propaganda to tell you that Americans are food insecure and therefore the government needs to increase the money paid out to these programs. The truth is, yes, people are food insecure, but it's because of poor decision making and lack of education associated to the food that is available. You can get high quality steaks, fruits and vegetables in your local area within season, and it can provide for your family for generations, reduce negative health outcomes, improve your vitality, help you live longer, improve your relationships, because again, that community food infrastructure includes going to local restaurants, it includes having parties, it includes making your land a destination rather than having to go outside all the time for your recreation. I know I've covered a lot here. I want to make sure that you're understanding this, and that's why I always invite you to ask questions. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your questions. Visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. Ask your questions on the contact page. We also have a number of free resources that are available there that help you with the food security implementation. I want you to have great food security on your property, and that could be as easy as a small herb garden or a small garden that provides supplemental vegetables. And then, of course, understanding where in your community you can go for seasonal fruits and vegetables. And really supporting your local farmer. Very often they know where food is available and how to get more of it. And if they get feedback from you, very often they're well equipped to raise more of the food that you want to eat. I want to thank you for being a part of what we do here. Your feedback, your questions are the foundation of our content. And if you'd like to join our community, we have a membership site available at www.prosperityhomestead.org. And I'm working on getting you access to these things because one of the things I've noticed as the propaganda increases, as the government tries to gain more control over land and your food choices, is that people sometimes don't have the practical implementation available or the practical skills available. And if we can get you those practical skills, it really won't matter what the rest of the world's doing. You'll have quality food, you'll have quality vegetables, you'll have food security, physical security, and you'll have this sense of clarity that comes with eating clean foods. I'll see you in the next podcast. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead.